Yo, what up? How's it going? And welcome back for another video. In today's video, I will be showing you guys my top 5 comps for patch 12.4 TFT Set 6.5. Now, I made this list based off of my stuff that I've tested personally and things that I've seen work very well on the ladder and the top of the leaderboards. So with that out of the way, let's just get into it. Okay, the first build we're going to talk about here is the Tryndamere reroll. Now, this has to be this is probably my favorite build to play. I just have a lot of fun playing it, and is very good for climbing, very flexible because you can play a lot of the other builds, even if you're looking for this one. And one thing I just want to say real quick is all of these builds have a lot of flex spots because it really just depends on your augment. So the boards that I've made on this comps list is assuming that you don't have any emblems. But if you have emblems, you know, take away the least valuable unit and flex your board around that. So just an important note there. But the Tryndamere comp. Now, this is a tempo composition. If you don't know what that means that you need to be stronger in the mid game for the most part. So your board needs to be mostly upgraded on either stage 3 or stage 4, and your build needs to be complete by stage 5, meaning that you've hit your appropriate 3 stars by stage 5. For the most part, that is what tempo comp means. So just know that this is more of an aggressive in the mid game type of composition. Cool. So what item start do we want to go for this? We want to start sword, glove, or bow. Those are going to be our best bet. We are going to prioritize itemization onto our Tryndamere, which is why we'll be going for sword as our best item. We can off carry our Warwick as well. If we hit a Warwick 3-star, we get good items to play Warwick, but we are going to prioritize items for our Tryndamere. That's why it's going to be sword, glove, bow rather than bow, which is a better Warwick and Tryndamere flex item. But yeah, that's going to be our item start. Some augments are going to be very good for this. Emblems are very strong. 5 Chemtech is very good, but you end up having to run. Sometimes you have to run some synergy bots, and like you're not going to have Victor all the time, right? We're going to be rolling a lot on 6 and 7, so you may not hit Victor and stuff like that. So having a Chemtech emblem can help a lot with hitting the 5 Chemtech threshold without having to play some really bad units, you know, like a Twitch or something like that. Verdant Veil, very strong on Tryndamere because Tryndamere is one of those champions that need 4 items, right? You know, he has that problem, melee carry things. So if you get a Verdant Veil, that helps out quite a bit, helping him get his damage off at the beginning of the fight. Feels very good, so you don't have to build a QSS, because I really do not like building QSS on Tryndamere. I don't think he deals enough damage if you do. Any type of Chemtech, like Chemtech Overload, Chemtech Emblem, Instant Injection, if that's still in the game. I haven't seen that augment yet, but in a long time. So anything like that is going to be good. Thrill is very strong, even though like we still do want to build a BT even if we have Thrill. But it does feel very good to have Thrill, just the extra healing. Like there's so many fights where Tryndamere is just like on 1 HP and gets and if I have Thrill, he gets a Thrill proc. Feels very good in the mid game as well. And any econ based augments obviously are going to be very strong. So what is our game plan? This is a tempo composition, so keep that in mind. So early game, you can either play strongest board, like if you just get a good opener, you have good sword items, maybe you already hit your Tryndamere, maybe you hit a Twitch 2-star in the early game, you can just play strongest board playing around early ADs like Twitch and Ezreal are going to be your easiest transition into this board. You can play around Chemtech Innovator in the early game. Then we want to either roll on 6 or 7 for 3 Chemtech, 4 Challenger board. That's usually what we want to do. So the reason why you want to roll on 6 and 7 is because, again, this is a tempo composition. So I really like to be strong on stage 3 when I play this board. So I'll roll on 6 or 7 depending on the game's going. If I win streak early game, I can go all the way to 7 and just play for like Tryndamere 3-star and try to hit like Renata and stuff like that and not play for my other 3-stars. But a lot of times you can roll to stabilize on 6 to hit Tryndamere 2-star and see if you have an angle at a 3-star like a Quinn and a Warwick and stuff like that. Cool. So you can either do that, or you can just full loss streak into a level 6 roll down for the same thing, a 2-star Tryndamere, 2-star in all the rest of your board, and that can give you an idea if you can look for an angle to stay on 6 to roll for like a 3-star Warwick, 3-star Warwick, Quinn, Camille, something like that. You can look for that angle, or if that angle is not doable, then you can just start pushing levels of 7 and start looking for higher value units like Renata and maybe like a Zac 3-star with the Tryndamere 3-star, that sort of thing. The rest of the game, you're either going to slow roll on 6 or 7, depending on what 3-stars you want to hit. And then again, this is a tempo composition, so you need to have most of your board upgraded to 2-star by stage 4. I mean, I really just like, I want to have every single unit 2-starred unless I have like a 4 or 5 cost on my board. By the time I get to stage 4 for sure. And then by the time you get to stage 5, you typically want to have your 3-stars that you need to play around 3-starred. So by the time you get to 5-1, you really want to have Tryndamere 3-starred. But Not necessarily all the time. I played a game last night where I didn't 3-star him until 5-3, and I first placed the game. I have a VOD of this on the YouTube. If you want to watch a full VOD of me playing this comp in a pretty high elo game, then you can check that out. I'll leave a link in the description and the comments section below. All right, cool. That is the Tryndamere build. Yeah, this is the Tryndamere build, guys. You just put these on here, and then so you can side carry Warwick if you get good items for him, or you can, like, you know, off carry a Renata as well. If you hit a Renata and you get good Renata items, you can do that. I did that last night when I played this build. All right, let's get over to the next one. Now, this one, good transition to another Chemtech build. So this one is, I would say this is probably the easiest way to climb on this patch, and I'll probably be making a video on some really easy climbing strategies as well for this patch. I think this has to be one of the easiest ways to do it. This one and the Sivir build are very, 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 very easy to play. The Sivir build is really, really, really easy, and this one is like really simple. Okay, so this is going to be Renata Bruisers. This is a vertical slash flex build. Vertical meaning that you start out with some base traits and you just continue to add onto them. The vertical in this one is Bruiser, but it is flexible. Like, you don't have to play 6 Bruiser or 8 Bruiser or something like that. So it's not full vertical. So there are a lot of flex spots. Cool. Remember, very flexible build. Item start is going to be Rod, Tier, or Defensive. Augments that are going to be good for this build are going to be Econ, Bruiser, Chemtech, Scholar, any of those type of emblems. Or augments based off of those traits are going to be very good. Makeshift is going to be very strong because Makeshift is very strong with Bruisers because they have a lot of health, but they don't have a lot of defensive stats. So this is going to be very good for that. What is our game plan when we play this? Game plan is going to be, this is a late game comp. So whenever you play late game comp, you typically want to have either a very strong early game or a very strong mid game. You need to be strong somewhere in there. You can't just full loss into level 8. And play the lottery. I know if you're a Soju viewer, you watch a lot of Soju, he plays a lot of 1st or 8th. That is not how it works for most people, okay? So so most of the time and in most skill levels, whenever you play late game comp, you do want to be strong on early or mid game at some portion of the game. You can't just rely on playing late game every game. So yeah, that's why we want to take some strong stuff. We want to slam some strong early items. So most of the time we want to slam strong early items like Locket and Spark to get us through the early game. Now, Locket doesn't have the best scaling in Bruisers, especially if you go for 6 Bruisers, but it is the best early game item, and we are going to start Rod because we need Morello, and Spark is also a very good item in this build. So yeah, we go for Locket or Spark early game. Remember that Morello is pretty mandatory in this build, as that is most of your damage is going to come from Morello in the late game. This is a stall-esque type comp. Cool. So ideally we want a fast 8, but if that's not possible, then just play like normal and stabilize on either stage 3 or stage 4. Then send it on 8 for the complete board. So if you need to stabilize on level 6 or 7, do that. Like if you need to stabilize on a Zac 2-star or something like that, that's all good. But ideally we want to get to level 8 to full send because we want to hit Vi 2-star, we want to hit Renata 2-star, we want to get a Victor. Victor can be very strong in this board sometimes, and we want to hit a Silco. Remember, guys, play flexible around your augments. We could play 5 Chemtech here. We could play 6 Bruiser here. We could play 4 Enforcer here. We could play 4 Scholar here. So very flexible board. Just remember that. But this is like, if I had to make one with no emblems, it probably looks something like this. Okay, so one last thing I just want to say about a Renata. Renata positioning, you either want a 2nd or 3rd row her because you do want her to, her ability doesn't go the whole map. So you want her to be able to hit some of their backlines. Make sure to reposition her every single round to make sure that she is in front of the enemy's team. So you want her to be like right in front of their team because again, her ult range is not the whole board. I think it's like 6 hexes right now. But yeah, that changes sometimes. Cool, yeah, so you want to be in front of their team. 3rd item is pretty flexible, but QSS can be very good because that means that you can like 2nd row her. And so you can guarantee that she hits the backline if she's on the right side. So QSS can be very good for that reason. Gunblade, I watched somebody play Gunblade Renata last night and it was nuts. So Gunblade is very good. Or you could just do a damage amp item for 3rd item like Jewel, Death Caps, that sort of thing is all good as well. All right, that's Renata Bruisers, guys. If you want free LP, play that comp. That comp is very easy. Okay, now we're gonna get to stall Ahri. Now, I know the board looks pretty empty and I'll explain why in a minute, so don't say anything about that. This is a very flexible build. And before I talk about Ahri and I talk about this build, I just want to say there are a bunch of different ways to play Ahri. So this is not like the end all be all only way to play Ahri. But I'm making this Ahri build because the idea is you were trying to play Renata, which is one of the best builds in the game right now, one of the freest ways to get a top 4. You were planning on playing Renata, but it just kind of pushed you into bodyguard syndicates. You know, it just wasn't happening. You just weren't hitting Renatas. You weren't hitting the Bruisers. And so instead, you settle on Ahri. That's what this build is. This build is settling on Ahri. But again, there are other ways to play Ahri where you can play her damage amp, that sort of thing. But I think on this patch, this is probably the best way to play around Ahri, because the best way to play around Ahri is to try to play Renata. At least this version of the build. So at this time, I'm making this video. Okay, so item start is going to be rod tier defensive. So same thing. A lot of the stuff is going to be exactly the same as Renata. Augments are going to be econ, emblem based augments, so you don't have to play Darius, that sort of thing, because we do want to play 5 syndicate most of the time. So any type of emblem is going to be nice for you. You know, even an Arcanist emblem, just give your whole team 20% AP, can be very nice as well. So makeshift armor, very good. As well as this is going to be a stall build, so makeshift can be very strong for that as well. And then a bunch of other augments like random damage, like Electro, Ludens, that sort of thing can be helpful, because this is kind of a low damage build. So any type of small damage added to your build can be nice as well. So game plan, exactly the same as Renata. Ideally, we want to fast stay into this board, but if you need to roll earlier, then roll earlier. Play strongest board, slam strong early game items. And we want to get to this late game board. So exactly the same as Renata. We're playing it as Renata, but we just didn't hit Renata and we hit this instead. So it's the same idea. So flex. So you most of the time want to have 5 syndicate. But again, this board is very, 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 very flexible. But you most of the time want to have 5 syndicate. I won't say all the time, but just if you don't know what to do, play 5 syndicate. Very strong. After that, just flex based off of the lobby and what you hit and your augments. So if there's a lot of AD people in the lobby, play 4 bodyguard. I've played a lot of 4 bodyguard Ahri to some success. So if there's a lot of those, play 4 bodyguard. If not, you can fit in a lot of enchanters. You can fit in scholars. You just play around the traits that you have active. So you have bodyguard, you have an enchanter, and you have a scholar. So whatever you think is best for the lobby or you're hitting, just put that in. You could also play some socialites, but I don't typically like socialite in this variation of the build because our damage is coming from Morello, not from Ahri's damage. We just want her to sustain off syndicate and burn people down with Morello, and we want to keep everyone alive long enough for her to get that done. So we just want to do that. Bodyguards, enchanters, scholars, that sort of thing. That's going to be your bread and butter whenever you play this. So remember, be very flexible with your late game build. Okay, now here is the degen build of this patch. There's, you know, this isn't a degen reroll build, but this is probably, if I had to pick the easiest late game build to play, it would be this. This is so easy. The only thing that is difficult about it is that you're very contested. So this is a vertical build, Hextech vertical. Our item start is going to be bow, defensive, and then sword. As you can see, there are no swords that I have in this build right now. But the reason why you could go sword if you can't get bow, because you could just play AD Sivir and not play around like 6 Hextech stuff and play more around strikers. Or you can modify your build to fit in an Irelia and put AD items on her, and you can have a duo carry between like Static Shiv Sivir and AD Irelia. So that's why we can go for a sword here, even though I don't have sword slammed on my build. Okay, augments. Hextech Emblem is going to be the best thing for this build because, as you can see, I have a lot of useless synergy bots. I have 2 of them on my team right now. Swain and Lucian are completely useless in this composition in the late game. So ideally, you really do want to have a Hextech Emblem when you play this, but if not, you just play Hextech. Econ is going to be great. Electro Charge is going to be nice, give you extra damage. Synergizes pretty well with Hextech, and your units are very tanky with 6 Hextech. Backfoot's very strong as well. Ludens is fine as well, but I would prefer Electro Charge over Ludens to give you extra damage, because it is nice to have a little bit extra damage in this build, as this build is a little bit low damage, except for Sivir. Sivir is going to be popping out a lot of damage. Okay, cool. So game plan. Buy the blue units. Just buy the units that say Hextech next to their tags. Just buy the Hextech units. Play your strongest board. Build a Static Shiv early game. Just item hold it on whoever needs to item hold it. You know, like Rek'Sai is a pretty decent item holder because Rek'Sai fits into this build really, really naturally. You know, you could item hold one of the Hextechs. You could item hold Lucian. Can item hold for Sivir's items very good. So just item hold on Lucian or Rek'Sai probably. And build a Static Shiv and QSS, and then Rageblade is your best third. So prioritize Static Shiv, QSS. So goal is to fast 8 and hit this board. Obviously that's the goal. But if you need to, you can full send on level 7 just to spike on 6 Hextech. Just roll till you hit 6 Hextech, or maybe an Alistair 2 or something like that. All you need is a Sivir 1 and 6 Hextech on stage 4 most of the time. So if you can roll for upgraded Hextech units and a Sivir 1, then you are good to go. But if not, you can just still try to carry a Lucian in the mid game. Can work out if you don't hit your stuff. You know, obviously you can roll on 6 if you need to, but ideally we want to either fast 8 or full send on 7 to spike. If you get a lot of 80 items, remember, modify your build to fit in an Irelia duo carry, and we just won't really be playing 6 Hextech anymore. We'll probably be playing like 4 Hextech, 4 Striker, or something like that. So just be willing to modify your build if you get a lot of Irelia items and stuff like that. Cool, that's pretty much it for this board. This board is so easy to play. Buy the blue units, put the items on Sivir, you're good to go. Cool, yo. All right, social Irelia. This build is, you know, really just like a very standard, very flexible build. I would say this is a little bit more difficult to play because you're going to be playing a lot of flex spots. So, cool. So this is social Irelia, very flexible build. Item start is going to be sword, glove, bow, then defensive items after that. Augments that are very strong. Ludens, if you don't know, Ludens procs on Irelia's abilities. Or whenever she dashes in. So even when she has a reset, it'll proc. So Luden's very strong. And it's also very good for early game to get you through the early game. Electro is decent as well to get you through the early game, as this is a comp that we really do want to get to level 8 as quick as we can, because we are playing a lot of expensive high value units. Cool. So anything that makes our early game a little bit stronger can be very nice. Econ based augments, again, we are trying to get to that hyper late game, so be very good. Any striker, scrap based augments, very good. Healing based augments, so maybe we don't have to build a BT, or helps with our BT, same idea as Tryndamere. And then Verdant Veil is going to be very nice, as we are carrying a melee carry. Can be very nice to get a lot of her damage off at the beginning of the fight. Okay, so game plan, we are playing strongest board, so be very flexible with that. Our late game board has bodyguards and stuff like that, but you could totally play bruisers for your whole early game, and then late game, as soon as you hit an Irelia, you just buy an Irelia and then slowly transition to a Blitz Braum frontline, and you're good to go. Like, don't worry about like you have to play like Enchanter bodyguards in the early game. Just play whatever is strongest. So ideally, you want to fast 8 into a board that looks something like this. But obviously, if you can't, then just full send on 7. So roll it down to 0 on 7 to hit an Irelia 1-star plus a strong board. Irelia 1-star, very strong in the mid game. So don't sleep on Irelia 1-star. So if you need to, just roll for an Irelia 1-star and upgraded units around her. One other thing I want to say is your scrap, if you're going to play, not scrap, if you're going to play striker, your striker will always be Gnar, as he is a socialite, and we get that 3 socialite bonus, can be very nice. Especially if we get 3 socialite and we get a healing augment, then we don't even have to build BT, and that can be extremely helpful to Irelia, getting a lot of her damage off. I actually played this build last night. I actually played 5 socialite Irelia. It was super fun. She was critting for like 1500, and I had a blast. I ended up 3rd place in that game because my Irelia was getting enforced, because I was also playing 2 Colossus and I didn't have a Warmogs on anyone else. So yeah, I couldn't win the game, but it felt really strong. Jhin is a flex spot on here. We can just play Jhin 2, no items. I mean, you guys know the meme. Jhin 2, no items will lead in damage sometimes, but Clockwork can be very nice in the hyper late game. But if you want to add like an Enchanter or something like that, or more Enchanters or whatever, you can add that there if you want to. Or you could just not play Scrap, I guess, and you could play Galio. And you could drop Jhin if you really wanted to, and you could drop one of these other socials to play something else. So very flexible, but if I had to just like make a board without knowing any context of the game, it would look something like this. All right, guys, that is it for the video. That is it for the comps. Yeah, there's some honorable mentions like Draven. Like Draven's not in here, but you could totally play Draven. Very similar to Irelia. Like I think you play Draven if you were trying to play Irelia, but you hit a VIP Draven and you know, you built his board. So yeah, so honorable mentions to like Draven, to reroll Innovators, that sort of reroll Rek'Sai is very good as well if you have the right board for it. So shout out to those boards, but I think these are probably, if I had to pick 5 boards to play every game, if I was really trying to climb, these would be the ones that I'd play. But yeah, I appreciate all of you guys who made it all the way to this point in the video. If you liked the video, please like the video. It actually helps me out tremendously on YouTube. You don't even know. But other than that, I just appreciate you guys, and I stream on twitch.tv/TrajanTFT if you want to catch me there, and twitter.com/TrajanTFT if you want to catch me on there. I meant to have this stuff on the screen, but I didn't, you know. All right. Well, I hope you guys have a good night, good day, and wherever you are, I just hope you're doing well. See you guys. Bye.